All right,
So,
go ahead.
all right. So, welcome to Deep Night Revelation. We will be picking up where we left off last week. These guys, they have made it back to Tradeport. There was a bit of a showdown between them and Earl E. Grain of Little Inveus on Tradeport, and the Empire of Inveus's um, embassy. And yeah, I mean, quite the showdown. Revelation undocked. It's still not ready to jump or capable of jumping yet. They're doing the last little bit, but it undocked from the mobile dock and has all of its guns aimed on uh, Little Inveus's temporary dock. And the truth be told, they really Marcus Feisler, the executive of Tradeport, doesn't really care if they were to blast um, the temporary dock into atoms because he wants Little Inveus gone anyways. The temporary dock was only supposed to be there temporarily, and Little Inveus kind of took it over and has been using it to dock their own ships there, and so he kind of feels like, if something terrible were to happen to the temporary dock, oh no, the horror. Um, but in the midst of all of this, a Commonwealth cruiser showed up, and it is an Indomitable-class Aviation Cruiser, clocking in at 20,000 tons, um, and it as soon as it came out of jump, it started to broadcast. Their captain started to broadcast on all open frequencies that they're here on a peaceful mission of exploration. Uh, and the captain even went so far as inviting dignitaries from the planet Bayou, which Tradeport orbits, and from Tradeport, inviting people to come aboard, and they were going to have a big diplomatic function, and it just kept insisting that the vessel was out on a exploratory cruise. One of the first things that is noticed, however, is that unlike Deep Night Revelation, who I mean, there's no way around it. It doesn't matter how many internal bulkheads have been modified and extra science equipment's been stacked into it. Let's just call it what it is. Deep Night Revelation is not an exploratory cruiser. It's a warship. It is a warship that is being used for another purpose. And
And
but um, Deep Night Revelation, they don't have combat craft. They don't have they have the standard auxiliary kind of ships. Geared towards exploration. That is not the case with the Illustrious. She came out and immediately launched fighters that are kind of doing a picket around the ship, and so um, that immediately caught everybody's attention. Is that for a ship that's claiming to be on an exploratory cruise, they're awfully well armed and they have a lot of top guns that are out there flying around in fighter craft. And they don't seem to have cutters and pinnaces and things like that are launching. They evidently do have shuttles that they have offered to send to the planet and to Tradeport in order to ferry these dignitaries back. But that is where we left off. The captain of the Illustrious has invited the travelers aboard for dinner with the captain, and they said they were interested in that because they are going to have to be going through or at least passing very close by Commonwealth space, and so they kind of want to get a better lay of the land and get a feel for what they're coming into. before we get started, we would like to mention that we do have a merch store via Zazzle. We have t-shirts and hoodies and buttons and Whiskey Rocks glasses and beer steins, and there's just a ton of stuff on that store. And 100% of the proceeds from that store gets dumped back into the channel. It helps us make ends meet for things like Roll20 Pro or Incarnate Pro, or even the software that we're using right now to make these videos. So if you would like to help us make those ends meet, go grab yourself a Whiskey Rocks glass, and we appreciate everything you do for us. All right. So, and Lainge, Captain Lainge, there he is. There's Bran. Hello, Bran.
Yeah, shut up.
Yes.
Yep.
Hooray. Hooray. Okay. So the gang's all here. So Captain Lainge sends a craft over. Look at this again. And I guess it probably.
Can we take our own craft?
No. So Illustrious will not give docking clearance for any other ships. But they will send their own shuttles over, and it just occurred to me. So
we're in the midst of a standoff with the I forgot the name of the
Early Grain.
Yes, Early Grain, where we've got all of our guns trained in his ship, and he was trying to convince us that, in fact, his bodyguards were not, in fact, a boarding party.
Correct. Yeah, he said they weren't a boarding party; that they were his personal
24,
bodyguards.
His 24 personal bodyguards.
Yes. That none of them were wearing uniforms of any kind.
Is our smuggler friend around still, or is she gone?
She left to go to deliver stuff to Greg. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So one of the things. So this is the old format for ships for Mongoose Second Edition. Really like the newer format better. I can't say enough good things about the update books, and one of the reasons for that is that in this list of stuff, they actually have a listing for what craft that the ship will have. Does it have fighters? Well, yeah. I mean, you can extrapolate much of this by the fact that there are there's 3 Type 2 docking clamps. There's a hangar, launch tubes, recovery decks. You can extrapolate much of that information by the tonnage of those. It doesn't tell me what kind. So let me take a look here.
Is there any way that we could get a meeting on a neutral site with leadership of this?
No. He invited you he invited you for dinner with the captain of the Illustrious, and he is having a diplomatic function dinner for all of the dignitaries who are already going over to the ship. He's busy juggling multiple balls. He's not going to leave the Illustrious to entertain you guys on a neutral site.
See, the thing that concerns me, I'm really talking more to the players here. Is Bocephus is saying, the thing that concerns me is that we go and we get on this ship and they try to, they've got a real military look to them, and I'm not necessarily sure that they will afford us the rights that we think we should have. And I mean, that's a really big ship. I'd really like to. I'd like to get a thoughts.
We're not in a position to run, and fighting is probably a bad idea without talking first. So I don't see that we have any alternative.
I mean, we don't have to run. We could just go, right? I mean, we're ready.
You can't jump.
Yeah, we're not at gravitational distance to jump.
And the jump drive's not done. You you unhooked from the mobile dock before
Right.
work was complete. So the engineers are in the back hustling, trying to get the last of this work done.
All right, then, then stalling and making this a really long, drawn out event until our jump drives get on is probably our best solid play.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
So Illustrious does send over a ship's boat and brings you aboard. And
We should let them know that if they want to, if they'd like to send a group on a ship's boat to take a tour of our bridge and ship, they're welcome to as well.
Okay. So Captain Lainge will seriously consider that post, dignitary functions, and he explains. He says he is sure that you have had to do similar things. He says he doesn't necessarily care for all the pomp and circumstance that sometimes is needed, but it is a part of his job, and so he has to entertain it. And this trade port being a independent port, he is fully aware that that pomp and circumstance in this situation is more important than in many others. He again iterates. We're on an exploration cruise, and we don't want to pop into these independent systems and have them think, oh no, there's a 20,000 ton warship that is in orbit. He's like, so we usually do these diplomatic functions and kind of allow everybody to see that we're just like them. We're not here to conquer anybody. Now, what the feeling that you guys would have got while on Tradeport, I mean, there are essentially 4 political bodies that exist in the FSN region. The 2 main ones are the Commonwealth and the Grand Republic. Of those, the other 2 are very minor. There is, of course, the Empire of Inveus, who you have already had the misfortune of dealing with. And then there is another one. They are the Dual Alliance. And nobody, I mean, the Dual Alliance pretty much keeps to themselves. They're very neutral. But the feeling that you got was that, and this is mostly through the 2 different types of currency that are active in the region. The Commonwealth credit, the Commonwealth, I mean, the credit that cred chip is really it takes the term of Commonwealth to heart, because it is based off of not just the GDP of the home world of the Commonwealth, but the GDP of all the planets in the Commonwealth. So everybody is contributing to the economic welfare of the Commonwealth credit. So there's that. That also makes the Commonwealth credit not quite worth as much as the TD. The TD is the standard credit of the Grand Republic. And unlike the Commonwealth, the Grand Republic, the feeling that you got was that they are a little bit more totalitarian. Maybe not. Yeah, they are kind of totalitarian. Not necessarily fascist, but very militaristic. But their money is based on real money. Like, it is based on how much money they have in their vaults, and that credit is based on that. And they also do not do, like, the Commonwealth credit is in some form an electronic form of currency, in that a single credit can be altered from a bank via biometrics to have more value dumped onto it than it may have had previously. It's like a stack full of credit cards. Whereas the TD of the Grand Republic, they like gold coins. They like platinum coins. They are very much into that whole idea of walking in someplace and slamming down, a fistful of credits on the counter to purchase something, and it's ingrained into their society, and that makes the TD worth more, valued more, and it's viewed kind of across Tradeport as a more stable currency, but the Commonwealth credit, because of how easy it is to get, is more commonly used. I mean, you could say that you like a certain dollar better than another, but if you can't get your hands on it, then you're not going to use it as much. And that's kind of the situation. So that's the overall feeling that you've everything that you would have known about the FSN region and the polities in there is pretty much all based on their financial prospects, because it's Tradeport. That's all they care about, right? They care about making money and where the money's coming from and how much it's worth. And so, aside from that, you don't know a whole lot. You've gotten some very mixed views of what the regional map looks like, because it's all based on trade routes. It's very peculiar. So this is an opportunity, of course, for you to learn a little bit more. And this ship's boat docks you on the top. So the cruiser has two bottom. It's kind of like, if you've ever seen Battlestar Galactica, it's kind of like the Galactica with the two pods that are recovery bays and launch tubes, except that the Illustrious has a third one on top. I guess on top, if there's a top or bottom in space. And that the top one up here at 24 is where you guys dock. Now, I blew this up as much as I possibly could for a map, but as you can see, when you start getting into the 20,000 ton range, I mean, I don't know that Roll20 would be capable of having me blow this up to a size and actually have it load on everybody's computers. I mean, I'd lag us all out. But they dock you here on 24, and you can see that there are other ship's boats that are docking and unloading passengers as well. Most of them are. I mean, you're not seeing any of these people that are wearing uniforms. They're all wearing suits. You don't see anybody that's wearing anything less than like khakis. They're all wearing Dockers and button-up shirts. You don't see anybody disembarking from these, wearing coveralls like they just got done working on a mining rig. They're all dressed to the nines. And as soon as you step off, a steward steps forward and he says, "I've been directed to bring you to the captain's dining mess." Everybody can roll a Recon plus Intellect check.
Hey, 8.
Got it by the skin of your teeth. Wow, Sarda blasted it.
Yes, that's 2 6s there.
So
Yeah.
Pappy's the only one that missed it. Pappy's just happy to be here.
Yeah.
But the rest of so Jack and Bocephus, you notice you're looking around, and I'm sure that both of you kind of have that smirky half smile on your face because you're looking around, and you note that, I mean, it's not it's not a bad ship, but compared to what you're used to aboard Revelation, and I mean, and this is really saying a lot because you guys have really dealt with some ridiculous crap, right? Like, I mean, there was the trailer park couple and her going off of her birth control meds that were mandated for the crew. There was that situation. There was, you know, some rather bizarre entanglements that were all very non-professional. But
No.
looking around, you can see just by the cut of the uniforms, the lack of attention to wrinkles, that the crew of Deepnight Revelation, it seems to be a lot more crisp and professional, especially the bridge crew. I mean, their uniforms are
You
always
think we just got on the Ocean Gate?
no, no. Not quite that bad. I mean, you know, Bocephus and Jack, or Bocephus and Mel, you can see that obviously it's a well-run ship, but just it lacks that crispness that you're used to from being on an Imperial ship from charted space. Sarda, you notice that as well, but the other part that you notice is that I mean, this is a tech level 12 ship, which is pretty good for the region, but I mean, it is nothing compared to Revelation. You guys technologically, you guys blow this thing out of the water. You're I mean, yeah, if you were to get into a down and out slug fight, the Illustrious might get a couple of good hits on you, but there's no way that the Illustrious would be able to stand up to the end against Revelation, and that's with
fucking
Revelation being converted.
The spinal mount fucking.
It's not great against fighters though.
Right? Yeah, trying to hit a
might
fighter
not
with a
be,
spinal mount is a pain.
Yeah.
So, but sandcasters would be going crazy there. So that's that's the part where their ship's much more the original Battlestar Galactica
Right.
ship
Yeah.
with all those fighters.
Yes, exactly. I mean, they got three sets of launch tubes and recovery decks. I mean, that's one of the reasons why they call it an aviation cruiser, is that it just puts out a fighter swarm. And I mean, we could get into debates about you know, if fighters are really all that effective. They can be. It just depends on how they're used. But so
And your exhaust vents.
And your exhaust vents, right. And so they bring you down to the captain's private quarters, dining quarters, which is on deck 4. These are luxury suites, the captain's suite type of thing. Bridge and sensors, yeah. So yeah, it would be down here on deck 4. Right behind the bridge, kind of, you know, close by. And you come in, and there's like a little mini bar set up that you can make yourself a drink. The steward goes ahead and offers to make you guys a drink, and there's kind of not like a dining table, but just kind of a casual seating area, and he says, you know, he makes you all a drink, and he says the captain will be with you momentarily. And he says he's probably having to deal with some dignitaries and diplomats. He says, you know, go easy on him. He says these types of events always make him a little bit aggravated, and he just kind of chuckles and leaves. And you wait for maybe 20 minutes. And then the door opens, and the captain steps in. And here again, Sarda, you immediately notice, like, he's wearing obviously it's a captain's uniform, but it doesn't necessarily appear to be a dress uniform. Like, you guys are overdressed compared to the captain, and I mean this. You're not sure how they do things in the Commonwealth military, but that's not how you guys were brought up. And he comes in
Right.
and he says, welcome to the Illustrious. I can see that that's quite the vessel that you have. From some of the people, in particular, Marcus Feisler of Tradeport, he tells me that you came all the way from Charted Space, someplace called Charted Space. He says Old Earth.
Old Earth is within the Imperium that we belong to. I've not been to Old Earth, but it is within our empire. And we left that empire and have traveled this far through just regular jumping rather than a misjump.
He says it must have been an incredibly long journey for you.
It has been. It's been like 7 years. I'm trying to figure.
It's like 6.5. Yeah, it's been almost 7 years.
Yeah, so it's been nearly 7 years for us. We expect to travel another 3 to our final destination.
He says, "Oh, interesting." He kind of does. You could see the gears turning in his head, and he stops himself from asking the obvious question. But you can see the look of surprise when he calculates it in his head about how far away. I mean, we figured it out like what 620 parsecs from Old Earth. Doing the math, he's like, "Holy shit! Your guys' jump must be massive, right?" And you can see the look of surprise on his face, and you can see that he quickly shuts that down and comes back to being, his stoic captain type face. And he mixes himself a drink, and he turns. He says,
I mean, I'd be happy to share my map, and I'll just pull up the hologram on my wrist, showing the jumps that we've made. I'd be happy to share this with your astrogator if that would help.
Oh, that would be fantastic.
Are you just giving away keys to the kingdom?
Yeah, if they.
Well, I mean, they could send a fleet of these ships. If they show up in Charted Space and run into the Imperium Navy, they're toast.
They're gonna develop Jump 4 and then try to follow this.
He says, you bring up that map, and he says, that is fantastic that you are so willing to share that information. And he says, and we would feel free to share information with you. And he brings up on a wall screen this map, and this kind of shows a little bit better of where of this region, and kind of what it's very similar to the map that you were looking at before. This shows a little bit more information about where the Commonwealth lies versus the Grand Republic. This orange dot right here is where you are at. This is where Tradeport is at. And so,
what direction are we headed?
You are headed down towards FSN-X, which is your next waypoint in your journey. Essentially, when you reach FSN-X, you are out of the far side of nowhere, and you will be in a region that has been just termed Void Shore. And so you don't really know what to expect down there, but as you can see, I mean, this is a sector to a sector and a half away from the borders of the Commonwealth and the Grand Republic. And he tells you, he says that the Commonwealth has sent some vessels rimward towards that region, Celadon, Naraka, Malvum sectors. And he says that brings me to one of the reasons that I'm out here on this exploration cruise. He says I'm going to share with you a piece of it's not necessarily classified information. It is classified that we know about it. So apparently, the Grand Republic also has sent a they called it an exploratory cruise, rimward, down towards Malvern. And he says it consisted of one ship, and it was a Valiant-class battle cruiser. He says, if you have noticed our loadout and complement, you would know what kind of exploration that they were looking for. They were well armed, and they were hunting.
Are you hunting the fungus?
He kind of looks at you like, I don't know what the fungus is, and then he continues on like he's going to put a pin in that, because we're coming back to that subject. Now he's curious, but he says, and that kind of brings me to why I invited you to this meeting, private, aside from all of the other dignitaries. He says, it has come to my the Commonwealth Intelligence Bureau's attention that you dealt with a unknown life form on a world not too far from here. Is what he doesn't know exactly where you dealt with it. He says it's come to our attention that you did deal with it. In fact, as far as I
don't know if "deal with it" is the right word.
Prejudice.
I mean, we came in contact with these
Re-landscape.
well, I mean, we came in contact with these really huge worm-like entities that like flowed through systems, and I mean, we hardly interacted with them at all. I assure you.
He says, no, that's not what I'm talking about. He says there was an event, some kind of event, rumors that have come into the Intelligence Bureau is that you actually launched a missile from orbit to deal with these?
Correct. Deal with an invasive species that was alien to the planet that it was on.
He says that is really why I'm on this exploration cruise. And he says, this part is classified. And he says, but I feel like we can do an exchange of information. He says, if you have any data that you have collected from that encounter, he says, I would very much like to look at that. He says, and we can share with you what we know. And he says, we've run into these creatures before. We're calling them the biologicals. And he says, they are, he says, they
I'll pull up footage of us entering, first person footage of us entering the spaceship where we went underneath it.
So that entirely enthralls him. This is the first time anybody has been inside one of their bioships.
Pretty sure we have DNA.
Well, Bocephus did bring back one of those nuts.
Yeah, I got a nut. Would you want a nut?
Well, he tells you, he says that those, he's, what are they? He says
they infest other creatures or something, or create a creature, and the way you got to do them is you got to bust the nut.
Yes,
that's how you.
That's
you
the correct nomenclature.
Yeah.
He tells you, he says that is that he says the Commonwealth scientists are just referring to that as a brain case. He says these creatures or entities almost act almost like automatons, except that they are they can think for themselves, and those brain cases grow into whatever it is that they need to do. He says if they need soldiers, they will grow into an ambulator, and it'll be usually in the torso region, lower torso, and it will operate that body. It can be taken from
Yeah.
the ambulator, and it can be put into a much larger creature known as the heavy lifter. And
Or
those things
are,
have usually anywhere from 4 to 6 legs, 4 arms. They're huge.
are you guys dealing with these guys on a regular basis?
He says he downs his drink and pours himself another. He says, "Well, we have actually lost 2 outposts towards the rimward end of the Commonwealth, and we are worried that this may be the beginning of a mass invasion, if not outright extermination force coming in."
Well, perhaps I could share with you my formula for heap rounds. That's what I busted up with.
Yeah, I mean they have access to heap rounds. I mean they are tech level 12, so they're not as
Okay.
backwater as most of these.
Yeah.
But if their planet's spewing out these plant-like seeds, spaceships that are just, it could be a real problem if they had quite a few land.
And he tells you, he says that those brain cases, they aren't just the core of an ambulator or a heavy lifter. He says that they can grow into anything. They have ships that are run entirely by a single brain case or sometimes multiple brain cases, and they're jump capable. They're not, from what we've been able to determine, they may not be very good at it, but they are jump capable. And he says, and that is my theory. That the Commonwealth has already lost 2 outposts. I am willing to bet money that this is the reason why the Grand Republic sent a Valiant-class battlecruiser named the Resolute rimward. I believe that Resolute is actively hunting for these bioships. They don't seem to have any sense of remorse or mercy. They attack unprovoked. And we can't. Our intelligence division cannot find any. There was no communication. There was nothing. These things come in and they destroyed everything and set up shop. And it was like we were in their way. And they just got rid of us and built on top of us. And he says, now...
Well, they were dissecting people from the settlement that we found them. Fucking crazy.
And he says, yeah, that confirms my fears. We found the same thing with those when we tried to retake those 2 outposts. We ran into a similar scenario where they were doing, some called it torture. In my view, I think it was more experimentation.
It looked more experimentation to me.
He says, I'm not sure. Maybe they're trying to learn about us, but they are clearly very alien in their thought process and how they deal with things. He says, if you want to share that data with me, and he holds up, or he hands you a personal computer, a portable computer, and he says, if you can upload any information, and he says, feel free to download the information that I have on that computer as well. This is all dedicated to the biological. Everything that is
that's Mel's shit. But I will. I'll hand the thing over to Mel, and then I'll hand Mel my computer and show him which files are all the medical scans and shit.
Porn folder. It's labeled as DNA.
You can watch the porn folder, but I do ask that you utilize wet wipes and not dry tissue when you clean my fucking computer. But,
so So yeah, I mean,
but
there's
you know,
he wasn't expecting you to freely give and take this information. So he is much more apt to work with you.
It is genuinely not our fight.
Right. Well, he then says, he then says, so he wants to know more. He says, you mentioned a fungus.
that's right. We have a video that will explain it all. If you'd like to take a moment to, familiarize yourself with the fungus among us that we are going to attempt to eradicate.
So he watches your short video, and he says, well, he says that does explain why you have made such a long trip. Your video, of course, shows that the end point would be Terminus Point. And he says, we have not run into anything like that at all. It's just, he does posit the idea that he says maybe there's a connection between the biologicals and the Deepnight entity. He says, but
what about drawing artifacts or relics?
He says, there is a large population of droid in the Commonwealth, and he says there are essentially. He says there are two types of droid. He says, which sounds weird because droid are usually they have castes. He says I'm not talking about there's like only two castes. He says there's two types of droid. Period. There's the normal droid that you probably. He says He says you've brought it up, so I can only imagine there's many droid in the Imperium.
Typically, it's the two casts, like you say.
Yeah, he says droid usually have castes. He says there's another type of droid that resides in the Commonwealth, more rimward, down in towards this region. He says we simply refer to them as super droid. They are casteless.
Like Chirpy.
No. Well, maybe.
Chirpy's got that good DNA. I got him off off ancient. Yeah, he's got that good juice.
But not quite like that. He says there is a world known as.
We might want to take Chirpy there.
He says there's a world called Oskitask, and there is a group of droid that live there that refer to themselves as the Anastoi, and they Anastoi in their language just simply means the people of Anasti, which is what their name for their world is, and they're droid, but they are slightly bigger, they are slightly stronger, and they are very much smart. They're smarter than regular droid. And this is why we've referred to them as super droid. They were already here when our people first came here.
And like geographically on your map here, where exactly would they be?
They're down here at the towards Rimworld.
We're headed that way,
right? And in
theory,
yeah, he tells you, he says if you're interested in droid, like I said, they were already here when our people first arrived in the region. So what, like 800 years ago? They were already here and established for a long time. And he says some of our scientists suspect that maybe ages past. Who knows how long? But the theory that our scientists have is that they are droid that evolved. He says the other thing about them that is different than regular droid is that they don't live very long. They have very short lives. From childhood to full adult takes about 8 years, and then they only have another 8 years of adulthood where they're in their prime before they start to, um, you know, suffer the ravages of age. And so it's very, very rare that you find one of these super droid that is over the age of 40. They usually die, long before 40 years of age.
We might want to take Chirpy there and just let him free to go introduce himself to their gene pool.
I want to make sure it's not going to be just immediately killed as an abomination.
Right. Well, and he does tell you, he says, so we have, of course, tried to contact them. Our scientists find them, quite interesting. And the big societal the big societal question for the Anistoi is whether or not they should become casted like the other droid, because they can see that regular normal droid with a caste system seem to live much longer lives, but they're not quite as smart or as capable as the Anistoi are. And they have attempted to become casted droid, and so far that has failed. They're the children that the Anistoi have that are born in as casted droid tend to be deficient in some way. They're either mentally deficient or they are physically weak. They don't live past childhood. That kind of situation. So something has happened to those droid that our science, because we don't have the information available of how they evolved or what the missing link here is. We don't have, our scientists don't have an answer. They just have a bunch of theories. He says, but if you're looking for ancient droid stuff, that would probably be the place to look.
Your Commonwealth that you're a part of, how difficult would it be to get a rite of passage to go across your territory?
He says, well, you seem like true explorers, and from everything that you've shown me, as far as this Deepnight enemy or entity, the fungus among us, as you refer to it.
First time.
Yes, he says. He says, I would be happy to escort you through the Commonwealth.
You said something, Will?
Yeah, I was just saying that'd be great.
Yeah, he says we would be happy to escort you through the Commonwealth. He says, he says I of course can't tell you where not to go. I can't bar you from anything, but he says I can tell you that if you were to enter the Grand Republic, your welcome there would be considerably cooler than it is here in the Commonwealth. They're immediately going to look at your vessel, and they're a bit more paranoid. So their level of fear would be more along the lines of a military escort to get you out of their space.
Well, I mean, we're the spearhead of extreme future trading possible, as well as really on a military thing. I mean, I don't I don't necessarily see a benefit to going and dealing with the Grand Republic if we can just use the Commonwealth. It's not that much out of our way.
We'd far rather have an exploratory escort rather than a military escort.
Yeah.
He says, yeah,
I mean,
that shouldn't be a problem. And he says, and of course, if the Illustrious is escorting you through Commonwealth space, then all of the ports along the way will be open to you, and refueling should be fairly easy. I can only. He says, I know how hard it must be for my pilots and crew to do wilderness refueling. And our vessel's only 20,000 tons. He says, Revelation, he says, we're dwarfed compared to Revelation. I can only imagine how good your own pilots must be.
We do a lot of
Good is an
runs.
understatement, my friend. Good is an understatement.
We have found that getting our pilots laid a lot tends to make them better.
I'm
Is
about
what
the flowers
I
around the neck.
I'm gonna. Sarge is trying to not laugh.
Hold on just a minute. I need to turn on my AC.
The Grand Republic doesn't sound like. I mean, that's like going through Russia, is what I'm thinking. And I mean,
We're also getting propaganda, right? I'm sure if we were on the other, if we were on the Grand Republic ship, they'd be telling us how shitty the Commonwealth are, So it's
maybe I'm sure, but the Commonwealth.
I think we're just path of least resistance is really where it is really.
Yeah. Well, we're already dealing with these dudes, and so that's less than known. I don't really care if the Grand Republic is a bunch of fucking, wonderful people that'll give us barbecue and a foot massage. I would much rather just, take this easy, Thera and the Droin ancient site is very tempting to go poke about, do some genetic trading.
So,
because we were running into those monuments that was the Droin race that made those, right? Yeah, okay. I'm sitting there going, I started doubting myself and thinking that maybe
that's where we got Chirpy's DNA from some real old one of them motherfuckers, and he's come out.
He does say that. Sorry, are you going to show him some pictures of these monuments, or
yeah, we should. Yeah, definitely show.
So he does say that there are not exactly like these, but there are some monuments similar to that throughout both the he knows that there are some throughout the Commonwealth, and he believes that there may be some in the Grand Republic as well. He said that nobody ever. He says our scientists always attributed it to whatever group of Droin came through with the Anastoi. He says so, but what you're showing me, that may not necessarily be true. He says we're not sure. He says that would be an interesting piece of information that would answer a lot of questions for many of our scientists. He says you're looking at going another 3.5 years to this point called Terminus Point. He says, would it be possible to perhaps bring a ship along with you that they could disembark from you, say somewhere in what you're calling Void Shore, and then they can jump back towards this direction in a kind of a exploratory scout mission kind of situation? Would you be willing to do that?
If we we don't have to lose a ship to do this, would we?
No, no.
All right.
And now I'm
Yeah, sounds good to me. Whatever.
looking for the ship.
Would the ship be a jump 4 ship or a jump 2 ship?
It would be. He would probably. It would be a 400-ton distant Ranger, with jump 2. He says it's going to take them a long time to get back, but
Yeah.
and we understand that, but it would be helpful for us because you could carry this ship out, and then they can explore on their way back. Not to mention the fact that getting there, any information that you pick up on the way, if we can continue our sharing of information, they can kind of get stuff in, both directions.
I'll add their astrogator to our crew of astrogators so that they have a good idea of the. So they have a better understanding of what the space they're going to need to fly back through.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, so you guys continue. Dinner is brought in on a cart. Again, it's good food, and it is served in a fancy manner, but it's more along the lines of like going to Red Lobster instead of going to like Black Angus Steakhouse. Red Lobster's it's good. It's just not as good. And so you guys were, again, because you're from a ship that came from the Imperium, and you guys just do things to a higher degree, evidently. You were expecting a little bit better. But like I said, it's still good food. It's just not quite as good as you were expecting. And so you guys have dinner, and he, for the most part, makes idle conversation. And one of the things that he brings up, and that he was fully aware of, he says that they do have, of course, Commonwealth intelligence, of course, has agents acting all throughout Tradeport. There's probably not anything that is hidden to the Commonwealth, and he kind of chuckles, and he says, "It has come to our attention that you've had some dealings with one Captain Milena Clayton."
Yeah, we've hired her to deliver some goods.
He says, yes. He says, she actually was a astrogator under me. I was captain of a frigate called the Chesapeake, and Captain Clayton at that time, Lieutenant Clayton, had a disagreement with some of my orders, and ended up trying to have me brought up on charges, and I, of course, brought her up for dereliction of duty, and the entire situation ended up never actually coming to a conclusion because she quit her assignment and left the military. She retired.
Yeah, she strikes me as one of those independent types that doesn't really like to be told what to do.
Exactly.
At the same time, I recognize that she's currently walking the edge of a knife, and if she were to get good, steady work, she could become a very productive person for society and for space at large. But if something were to go against her, she would very quickly, I think, become instigator.
Yeah, he kind of laughs. He says, I think that if she got steady work, she might get bored and go right back to her old ways.
She might, but delivering goods to frontier planets never gets too boring. You know, there are jobs that she probably could be contracted to do that would keep her busy and keep her happy.
Yeah, he says that he found it surprising that that you would have used her. Uh, he says she is a tool in a toolbox, but I would classify her more as a hammer. So she's good for when every problem is a nail.
Well, right now she's not an enemy, and so I would, you know, in my mind, I would continue to use her as a tool, and I would cultivate her as an ally.
Until she has children. She's probably going to have a son, and the son will start out to be good and promising, but he will turn to the dark side, end up killing her with a monofilament blade, you know, extending through her midsection, and she will fall off a land bridge.
And Captain Lainge's like, "What race are you again?"
He has a problem.
He says clearly. And so
You see the movie? Now I saw what happened to Han Solo.
Yeah, that movie. What the? God damn it, Disney! You had a very simple goal, and you just fucked it up, Disney. What the hell?
Man,
I want to know. I want to know
like,
where he learned to speak Wookiee.
Well, there's that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you kind of picked that up a little bit in Solo.
It would have been so great if they hadn't have made him and Leia get together. Instead, you know, Leia could have had a kid, and it could have went on to be, you know, the bad guy, just like the story. But instead, Han Solo catches an STD, and he's forced to take an ever-increasing amount of drugs as he withers away, because fucking everything is not good for your testes. And that's the message you want to send to kids. You don't want to send a message to kids.
What are you saying? What? You trying to say something?
So
No.
Totally digressing, but so I have now gotten to the point in Dune Awakening where I have a crippling spice addiction.
Hell yeah.
And it's really funny because it gives you extra powers, right? But if you use it, and it lasts for so long, as long as once your meter is full and you're totally cranked out on spice, and you use it, then it goes down, and when it hits 0, you actually start to have some withdrawal symptoms. And I thought my video card was taking a shit on me, right? And so I'm seeing these like weird black shadow spots on the monitor. I'm like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh man, was my video card dying? What's going on? And I turn with the mouse, and there are these black shadows in the shape of like big leafy trees all across the desert, and I'm like, what the fuck? And you can hear a whole bunch of like whispers and shit in the background, and I've got really good surround sound, so I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And then all of a sudden it goes away, and then you're fine. You got to go find some more spice to consume and get high again. I'm like, wow, they really went all out with this. And I guess as you use it, and the more that you consume, you have to use more and more and more and more and more over time because you build up a tolerance to it. It's pretty fucking cool. I like that game. Anyways, back to what we were doing. So dinner goes on. Making idle talk, and I mean, it is clear to you that the Commonwealth is very concerned about these biologicals. All they know is that they're coming from rimward and spinward, so down and space south and space west. But that's all they know. They don't know. They just showed up one day, and he is aware of, and you heard this too, that there are reports of ships being seen, these bioships, throughout the FSN region, and he says he fears that they're sending scouts to scout out the region. He says there's this strange there's this strange tale in the region. He says perhaps you've heard of it. It's local talk. You've heard the old tales probably about the Wendigo. But they call it the Iran Alaska, and he says, I have my suspicions that the Iran Alaska are the biologicals, and perhaps they've been here for a lot longer than we've known. He says, but I don't know why there's this sudden push. I mean, they just came in and obliterated 2 of our outposts.
Yeah, they suck.
And it was these plant creatures. Is there any video footage?
Yeah, he shows you the video footage, and there is clearly in the video there is clearly a ambulator. One of these guys is what they are calling ambulators, and there's another one that you haven't seen before, and that one looks like this.
Mm.
And
you got to bust the nut on them too.
It's huge.
And hit that son of a bitch right in the middle of it.
This elephant-like trunk that it's got in the video, you're seeing that it is spewing out like a acid and just dissolving everything around it.
You don't ever want to get caught playing in Spoo.
Bocephus, you might want to see if you can't come up with something that might work against them.
Biological warfare.
Yeah.
Excellent and wholesome point.
Some Roundup, some WD, some DDT.
Some DDT.
If you're not going to commit fucking genocide and war crimes, why are you leaving known space to begin with?
Right.
I mean,
we
could have stayed home and had tea and crumpets with fucking sardine.
It's
an electrician.
War crime the first time you do it.
I was going to say the fat electrician's motto. It's not a war crime the first time it's done.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yes.
Oh man.
So dinner goes on, and you get a tour of the ship. Here's the Illustrious, and I mean it's a nice ship. It's just not quite as crisp and sharp as attack like what you're used to aboard Revelation. Which really is kind of, from your guys' standpoint, it's really kind of a pleasant feeling considering all of the personnel issues you've had over the last 6.5 years. You're like, well, at least we've got a little bit more crisp tightness to us that the rest of the ship doesn't have. But
well, what does dude think about, like, while we're traveling, we have like a celebration of our peoples coming together, and we can have an ongoing mixer / carnival where both our crews could spend their downtime socializing and learning about each other. We've been traveling for an extremely long time, and the social aspect of these mixers, as well as the downtime, would really benefit my crew's morale.
Absolutely. Now, yes, he is 100% for that. Now, and in addition, he does bring up. Yes, here it is. The Indomitable. He does, say that if we're to escort you, and he did the math in his head. He knows that your ship is capable of more than jump 2. He's not sure how much more. He's guessing 3 or 4,
I,
but
I think we're willing to go jump 2 and give us time to run extra tests on our J drive and make sure we got that all worked out.
That's true. We've got a new J drive.
So so you get through dinner. You are ferried back to Revelation, and he of course has to finish his dinner his meeting with all the dignitaries and whatnot. But the next day, he requests docking with Revelation. He would like to take you up on the opportunity to take a tour of Revelation.
Cool.
Yeah, sure. Be happy to give him a tour.
Use the.
Yeah.
Wait, am I missing something? I thought we were not ready to leave dry dock yet. That we were not fully equipped.
We're not ready yet, but we will be soon.
Yeah, I mean, you left the mobile dry dock more as a show of guns on the temporary dock, but I mean, you're literally talking about 2 days worth of turning wrenches and hopefully bringing the J drive online. Everything that the mobile dock was going to do for you had pretty much already been done. There might be some minor parts that need to be ferried over, but for the most part, the need for the mobile dock is past.
Did they bring us all the fuel? Like all the fuel they could possibly get their fucking hands on?
Oh yeah, you're completely fueled up. Yeah.
So we don't know need to go diving to the surface of a fucking sun to refuel in 5 minutes. Great.
Right. Yes. Yeah. No. You don't need to. You don't need to do a wilderness refueling. Once the J drive is online, theoretically, you should be ready to go. And the chief engineer, of course, calls Sarda down to engineering for Sarda's inspection of the J drive, while Captain Lainge is coming over. So Sarda won't be available to give a tour. Who wants to? I mean, do the rest of you, all 3 of you, want to show him around Revelation and show off, or one of you want to do that?
Show him the clone vats.
I don't know, with the biologicals and whatnot, maybe don't scare him like that.
Yeah, we're just doing a cursory tour, nothing sensitive, I think. But I mean, I've done a lot of talking, and so I mean, I want, either Brian or Jack have to take this.
Okay.
Or both y'all deal with it. But I have to make sure that I don't hog the game because I have an aggressive.
I mean, I don't care about giving the guy a tour now if you had a sexy female lieutenant with him or something.
Did he bring a harem or whatever it is they have?
A what?
A harem or
no.
whatever it is they have.
No.
A pussy parade.
No. He came over with him and his first officer, and that's it.
Yeah.
Does this first officer think that the name Snail Trail would be a good stripper name?
No. No.
Good Lord.
Terrible.
That's
so
funny
I guess it's on Mel and Pappy to give the tour. Where are you guys? Let's see. You would be coming in. Why is that not working? It worked. Oh. There we go. Now it's working. So they would be coming in docking space down here. Where would you like to take him for a tour? I mean, are you just giving him a cursory once over of deck 1 or deck 2, or just?
Is there anywhere that we think would be like incredibly impressive as like this is definitely way better than what you have kind of thing?
I mean,
I know most of it will, but is there anything that's like, yo?
I mean, if you were to take him on a tour of the bridge on deck 2, that would probably impress him, because I mean, one of the things that he doesn't have on the Illustrious, they don't have holographic controls. All of your consoles on the bridge of Revelation are all holographic consoles. They can be switched at a moment's notice.
I mean, I have to
Do
assume
we
that
want
he
to
is-
show him the bridge?
I have to assume
Sorry,
he's
go ahead.
fully wired up, right? And recording fucking everything. Is there any place here that we do not want to take him?
Yeah, that.
I mean,
I mean, the
I
personal.
understand I'm playing Traveler, but in the back of my mind, all I'm hearing is first strike, prime directive,
Right. I mean,
prime directive.
I think we should avoid the scientific modules where we have experiments and things like that going on.
What our jump drives look like?
I mean, if you want to show them your jump drives, I mean, even if he has a hidden recorder, just looking at the jump drives isn't going to be enough for him to backward engineer it. You know what I mean?
But we'll just give a precursory warning to wherever these people are going that, you know, you want to make sure that your passwords aren't being recorded or anything like that, you know.
Oh shit, I
Make sure no.
got to change my password from guest to password with a capital P.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, ask them if they'd like to try a urinal cake.
My password's 8 asterisks and an exclamation point.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, let's start at the command center. Let's start at the deck. I think maybe it's right. We should go to the.
You should start with all the science labs that were added to make it less military.
yeah, I mean, you could do that. I mean, that's going to be.
You can explain how large
deck
gun
1.
batteries were removed to add, you know, these labs, that type of thing.
Yeah, deck 1 scientific module. There's op suites. There's large operations. I mean, med bays. You might want to stay away from the one med bay that Bocephus operates out of. But other than that,
I mean, I don't think we're going to fool them that we're not a military ship.
No, I know, but that's the stuff that was added to make it less military, and so it just shows that there was an effort made to downgrade the ship from being a full-on military ship to
right. And
something in between.
I mean, for instance, your when Deepnight when Deepnight LIC purchased Revelation. I forget what she was named something else, but it was bound for the wrecking yards and the shipbreakers. And when they purchased it, the Imperial Navy was, you know, of course, wringing their hands. They're like, okay, well, you know, we can't sell her with all of the weapons that it normally would have, because, I mean, that's just a bad idea. And so a lot of the beam lasers and whatnot turrets were stripped, and Deepnight LIC re-added a lot of these. But the one thing that was of major contention was the spinal mount. And Deepnight LIC had told the Navy that it was very important that they have access to a spinal mount particle beam because that is used in scientific operations, such as nebula clouds, atmospheric effects, things like that. A spinal mount particle beam gun is a terrible weapon for doing like artillery or orbital bombardment because
You have to constantly maneuver the ship.
well, not only do you constantly have to maneuver the ship, but when you fire it and that beam hits the atmosphere, it's completely dispersed by the atmosphere. Very, very little, if any, actually reaches your ground target. And so
that's what the railguns are for.
That's what railguns are for, right? That's what a mass driver is for. But so
unless you're going after fungus,
right? Well, even then, I mean, it's not going to reach the fungus because the atmosphere is going to disperse it in a really fantastic-looking light show, and there will be golf claps from the fungus on the ground, but they're not going to be hurt. And so, the Imperium Navy was really their initial consideration was, well, it's really difficult because this entire ship is built around this thing, right? That's why it's a spinal mount. But they were considering pulling it and replacing it with a less powerful one, probably one very similar to the one that is in the Illustrious. But then the beam counters looked at their spreadsheets and said, well, holy shit, this is going to cost a lot of money. And typical for navies, even in the real world, they're like, well, you know what? We can just reclassify it and just leave it the way it is and call it a scientific instrument. And that way we don't have to spend all that money to basically re-engineer the entire ship. And so that's how you ended up keeping, or that's how Deepnight ended up keeping the original spinal mount weapon that was in this thing. And that's what makes it such a deadly exploration ship. Your scientific equipment can core holes through other ships. And so, I mean, you show him the science ops, and he's really interested in some of the experiments that are going on. And are you going to show him like some of the experiments that are being done for instance, on the
I would think the antifungal stuff would be.
That's the question I was going to ask.
Yeah.
Are you going to show him that, or?
Yeah, because I mean, these guys might be working on something similar for their plant problem, and so
biologic.
So the one thing that Bocephus did find that the main, I mean, you shared everything with them, so I would assume that they have this information, is that the biologicals have a natural immunity similar to what you guys found, what Sarda and Bocephus found on the moon Alpha way back when this whole thing started. And they found it in actual soil samples. Now, the assumption was that perhaps that came from the droin, but nobody knows for sure. But there was a mild antifungal in the soil samples of Alpha that prevented the fungus from reaching its full potential. It still reached enough potential. It was still pretty bad, but
fungal retardant.
Yeah, it was fungal retardant. Yeah, I mean it could have been a lot worse. There were plenty of fungal zombies and whatnot as it was, but it wasn't as devastating as it could have been. And that's where they got the initial stages for their vaccine. And then, of course, they ran into the how do I put this? He was a fungal zombie, but he maintained most of his intellect, and it was an ancient droin that very little of his original self was left, and using his psionic powers for hundreds of thousands of years, he had kept the fungus contained in this one little lab, hoping that somebody would come and get the information out of there which these guys did, and then asking them to please kill him because he didn't want to deal with fighting the fungus anymore, and they did that too, but that's where they got the second stage of the antifungal cream. That's where they made Decimate.
Yeah.
And so
You guys invented fast-acting tenactin?
yes, they are at the
Yeah.
fast-acting tenactin stage of the antiviral, which you have all been inoctodexed. It is, I mean, you probably need to do it, before each encounter. Like if you're going planetside and you suspect that there's fungus, I'm sure Bocephus is pulling out the hypos and giving everybody a booster shot.
I love giving inoculations.
But it also has at stage 2. It also, if you do become infected, it has the ability to perhaps reverse that infection. So, he's been trying to make it even more potent, but getting past. I mean, there are certain hurdles that he has to get past, and he just doesn't have the information yet, or a living specimen to reach that next level. But so Captain Lainge is very interested in that, and he asks, he requests. Of course, Bocephus is in the science labs, and he asks Mel and Pappy. He sees Bocephus in the labs he's working, and he asks if it would be possible for him and his first officer to basically get the, I don't know what you would call it, I guess get the recipe for making this, in case, because from what he understands from the video that you showed him, it sounds like this stuff can appear anywhere, and
That's right.
the Commonwealth would very much appreciate an exchange of information on how to deal with that.
Yeah,
Fire.
I don't mind sharing all that shit.
Fire.
Like here,
Fire and UV light.
We're losing our ability to commercially exploit this information, says the broker.
You're turning it into a generic before we've even made our money back.
Oh yeah.
I didn't realize
Yeah.
I didn't realize you were going with the Paul Reiser character from Aliens.
Yes, right.
And I will allude to the fact, that if Mel's there, I'll be like, I am about to undergo a bunch of series of tests and see if I can find things that would aid us into battling these biologicals, and
So Bocephus.
well, you can just contact Mel, as we do our travels, and he will be sure and guide you through getting the new information.
Okay, so Bocephus in the lab, and Captain Lainge gets to witness some of this. So you have returned to the lab. The nut, the brain case that you kept from Wildwood, has grown tendrils out of it and is kind of mashed up and is completely filling this glass case that you have it in the lab with these tendrils. Like it's trying to reach out and find something like ground or like soil or a connection of some kind for it to grow into and take over.
Well, I'm going to double contain it then, a buffer zone between the first container and the second. So if it breaks out, it'll have to break out of a second one.
Okay.
And we'll have time to assess that.
And, Captain Lainge sticks around. You guys stick around long enough. He kind of, you guys are behind like lab glass, you're looking into the laboratory, and he kind of witnesses this entire situation, and Mel and Pappy, you can see that Lainge just kind of shudders. He makes the comment to his first officer. He says, "I had no idea that they were that bad." He's like, he looks at Mel and Pappy and he says, "This is the first time that I've actually seen the brain case out of one of the ambulators or the heavy lifters, and it's still alive. The ones that we have all had and our scientists have been researching we're all dead. We killed them to the best of our abilities."
Well, you see
Yeah,
stuff.
they're not good. That's the reason
yeah.
why we bombed the planet from orbit.
Yeah.
He says, I can definitely see the logic in that.
Well, I mean, we were fortunate in that it landed in a place that was not. There were no population that we had to worry about, and it was obviously they were an invasive species. We had no way of communication. We went through their ship looking for any type of data that we could pull out of it to see if we could somehow get information that way. And so we realized that, the simplest solution, honestly, was the orbital bombardment. And honestly, we don't know that we've completed the job. There may be survivors, and you can see what this one by itself is capable of. So we don't know that we've completely solved the problem.
So Startup, go ahead and make a engineering J drive plus education or intellect.
Engineering J drive. 12.
Okay. So the chief engineer has called you down, wants you to look things over since you're actually more knowledgeable about J drives than the chief engineer is. And so
Sure.
you are all the way down in jump drive, and you are going over the diagnostics. Essentially, the computer, the BIS computer, is giving you a computer simulation. It's running through diagnostics and doing this simulation of what it thinks is what the current hardware that is installed and set up. This is what the current jump drive is going to be capable of, and it is all coming back in the green. The jump drive is ready. Should you want to put power to it and jump?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's put as many instruments as possible to monitor how it performs for this jump.
Okay.
Because every time you switch the jump drives around, you're going to have slight differences, and so let's make sure that we have a good idea of what we're dealing with.
Okay.
And let's do a jump too right. We're going to head back at a slower rate.
Right. So Captain Lang, you guys complete your tour, and Mel and Pappy make a recon plus intellect check.
Do we catch him being sneaky?
No. Oh, Mel doesn't
I
notice.
don't see shit.
Wow.
I got 9.
So
He's busy cutting a side deal.
yeah, Pappy, you get the feeling as you give Captain Lang and his first officer a good tour, and you meet him back in the docking space, and he's boarding his ship's boat, and you get the distinct feeling that Lang is heavily impressed with Deepnight Revelation, maybe to the point of perhaps a little fearful of exactly how technological, what a technological advantage Revelation has over Illustrious and literally every other ship in the Commonwealth fleet. That is not lost on him, and you sense that Lainge is kind of trying to hide that, and is hiding it by continuing to have pride in his own ship. But it's obvious to you.
It's not. I'll be like, as good as our ship is, it won't be long before y'all get here too. A little bit more hard work, and you'll be catching right up to us and be right there alongside us. You have a great ship, and I can tell that not too long from now, you're going to be right there.
Wow.
You keep doing the work you're doing.
Pappy can make a diplomacy plus social check, and you get to make that with a boon.
Yowza.
Nice.
Did I do shit? Diplomacy. I don't have any diplomacy.
Well, then you're at -3, but you still get to make it with a boon, so roll 3 and take the 2 highest.
You get your social. I'll be right back. And food just got dropped off.
Okay.
Assist his persuasion check.
It's not really persuasion, it's definitely diplomacy in this case.
You said diplomacy plus social.
Yes.
And then
-3.
Oh wait, cancel. -3, got that part, and it's with a boon. So let me switch it over to boon, and here we go. Boom shakalaka.
So that's still pretty good. You impress him. It's not lost on him that you are. He doesn't take it like you are patronizing him. It's not lost on him that you are aware of perhaps his fear at your technological advantage, and that you are trying to smooth things over, like make everything cool, and it's not lost on him. But he doesn't take it as if you're trying to patronize him in any way or insult him. And you guys shake hands, and he leaves. He does tell you that as soon as he's back to the ship, he will have his astrogator share their astrogation data for a course that they can plot towards the direction that you're wanting to head. And as soon as you're ready, you can jump. Do you want the bridge crew to make the astrogation check, or do you guys want to make the astrogation check?
But I don't care.
Mine's pretty good.
Mel is really good with his +3 education.
+3 education, right?
And
And 2 ranks?
And 2
Yeah, that's +5. Yeah, so Mel should do it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and then Will should do the jump drive.
All right.
And
I've got jump drive and sensors. I've got high skill ranks in. I can beat Mel, but he beats me at every other skill.
Right. Yeah, you had to really work to get those skills up to a point where you can beat him. That +3 in education's hard to get past.
Yeah, I have four ranks of those 2 skills, and so those are my babies. But everything else, Mel is, 15 education is amazing.
Same. I'm adventuring as an old man.
Exactly. So same question. Do you want the bridge crew to press the big red jump button, or does Sarda want to be the monkey?
I'm happy to let I'll let the bridge crew. I'd actually prefer to be in engineering.
Okay. Well, let's see here. That is a +2, giving them a total of 2D +6. Ugh. And they just make it with. They rolled 2 fucking ones. And they just made it with an 8. So,
it's a good thing we're only going 2 systems over.
Yes, 2 parsecs. The revelation makes her jump. The weak in jump. What are you guys doing? Are you studying? Are you researching? What are you doing?
I'm trying to come up with a biological warfare type thing. I'm trying to figure out what I can do to help the fight on these
On these biologicals?
nuts. Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
definitely studying because I'm getting very close to being able to roll again.
Sure, go ahead and add a week of study time. Let's see here.
I'm continuing to study vac suits.
Okay. What is Pappy doing?
Grinding on that athletic skills. Still trying to get it. Hopefully, I don't fail this time. Grinding it out.
So go ahead and add a week to that. Bocephus. Go ahead and make a I know where I want to go with this, but I need to look at it. so would it be, I guess it would be, would it be biology or, go ahead and make a science xenology plus education check. A horticulture roll. I mean, holy shit.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Damn.
Okay. So you're in the process of your studying. I mean, you're a long ways from coming up with a way of easily killing these guys. However, I mean, there are a number of options on the table, but you're still not finding anything that's better than just using heap rounds, right? But the data that Captain Lainge shared with you, that heavy lifter that is doing that was spewing the acid all over the place. Their scientists are just calling it a venom sprayer. Not all lifters are equipped with that. Evidently, these things can be grown. They can grow weapons, and they're just calling this the venom sprayer. And it sprays caustic acid, up to 50 meters. And that deals 3D damage to everything it touches on the first round, then 2D the next round, and 1D on the third round. So you come up with some of the
A base solution to counteract the acidic nature of the acid.
More like
I mean,
a resistant.
That's how you
a resistant armor that can be attached to or refitted to your HEV suits that that gives you a little bit of protection from this. Essentially, it makes it 2D damage on the first round, 1D on the second round, and none on the third round. So
that's pretty valuable.
It's much better than what it was. So that is what you are able to glean out from there, from your research.
I will share that information with Mel.
Okay. All right. I think this is where we're going to break for the week. I will pick this up next Friday with. We will be looking more closely at the Anastoi and the Super Droin and their little conundrum of, do we cast? Do we just stay the way we are, dying young kind of situation? And what that all means as far as the droin that came through the system. So we'll pick this up Friday night at 6 o'clock.
All right,
Appreciate you.
guys.
All right.
There's a real possibility that I have to travel for work next Friday, so I might not be able to make it.
All right. Well, let us know, and we will make a decision at the time.
Yeah,
All
cool.
right, cool. Have a good one, guys.
Talk to y'all later.
Good
Take
night.
care.
Yep. Have a good night, guys.